Hi there, I'm Petar and this is PetarSmiljana Qigong. This is a second part of the video about sixth element. Lack of consciousness. When a human eats a living food, he intakes a consciousness that follows this way of life. Simply, fears start to vanish. If you live in fear, which causes lack of consciousness, you don't love and you are not connected with divine. One source, Tao. How do I know that? Because I have experienced it. Chinese say that a person with weak earth element loses his mind, can't find a center. In order for the earth to have a purpose, meaning, a center, from her it needs to grow something, which is what? A seed, that hidden one. But it cannot grow if you cook it, boil it, fry it, and feed it with death nutrients. If you feed yourself with lack, you are creating lack. If a seed germinates, it is edible, and soon after a germ appears, its energetic value grows at least to the 10 multiples. However, if it is cooked, it is only a shadow of original. Think about that, dear watcher. If what you eat is not a living food, you're actually eating the lack of it. For those who have enough consciousness, the lack doesn't exist. It is an illusion. In the period of warring states, in China, between 470 BC and 223 BC, there were 6 elements. The elements were known as seats of rule, palaces, ruling chambers, substances. And these were, according to the documents from that time, those were 6. These were supposedly water, fire, metal, wood, earth, and seed. Water and fire provide food, metal and wood provide wealth, and earth provides conditions. Conditions for what? For development or growth. Of what? Seed, grain or seed. When I first time heard about sixth element or grain, which I would rather call seed, since grain is a seed, I thought of the rice seed. Rice is a basic food of Asian people. And this was one of the first associations when I was thinking about Chinese people. That's how I was thinking in the past, when I was convinced that basic human food is some particular basic food, which might be grain, meat, milk, when I was still cooking and baking. Then I passed over to predominantly raw food diet and freed myself of another error and prison. Grain isn't rice, wheat, barley, rye, millet. Grain is like all of the elements, something etherical, some element which is only a degree in the ascension or descension of the energy from the state of Wuji. When Tai Chi begins to move and Yin Yang are born, and from them 5 elements are born, or better yet, 6 states. Seed of life. Seed of life was once a part of publicly known truth in one period, in some places before and in some later, all over the earth. This knowledge, also known as sacred geometry, starts to hide, and only a part of this truth or none is allowed. Through this sacred geometry, the seed or grain is expressed and illustrated. We know 4 stages of the same pattern: seed of life, flower of life, fruit of life, net of life. Now I can already see how someone will ask, what has this got to do with the humans' captivity, with the element of earth in Chinese tradition and some Da Vinci's drawings, which, by the way, is not at all his, but he drew it in many occasions, especially when he studied golden ratio. Certainly it was for good reason. If you would draw flower of life or had it drawn somewhere in your house, you could lose your head in Christian medieval. Why does a seed fall on the ground? If I would look at the theory about the evolution of energy, every yin has its yang, right? Then even Earth must have its something, even though it represents the middle, right? And this something can be a grain, seed. Grain is yang because the Earth accepts the seed, and because one of the qualities of the yin is acceptance. Earth in its basis is more of yin quality, right? So in the middle there has to be some counterbalance to this yin, and that is seed, movement as basic cause. If both pairs, fire, metal, wood, water, have their own movement, so does Earth have its opposite movement. Let me remind you, Earth element grinds or divides. That means the opposite of this would be merging or uniting. And truly, if you observe plants in the nature, you will notice how they grow. They combine and merge new molecules always and in every moment. There wouldn't be any carbohydrates, no proteins, and no vitamins, enzymes, fats, and others if this wouldn't be happening. And all of those molecules were made from something that earth, dirt, contains, and all the other elements carry within. Wood, growth, fire, heat and light, water, fluids, and all soluble microelements, oxygen, earth, grinded microelements, and stability. Well, Buddhists say that in the universe, one energy or a form of energy holds us together, and this is compassion. Compassion for them is the state of emotion that we call love. Love have a power to connect, to attract, maybe even gravitational. Who would know? The composition of life, the element earth with its characteristics today is missing counterweight, and so in our science nowadays prevails the thought that entropy and decay is the one movement or direction in which everything in the universe is evolving and moving. This means towards decomposition and chaos, which is named scientifically the entropy. But if you look from another perspective, everything somehow strives for balance and harmony, connection. Are we only in the state of our consciousness that doesn't allow us to see the whole picture, or there is something missing in our perceptive system? Some mini detail which was taken out, and from then on everything ran differently. We haven't seen the whole picture, like someone would cut off half of our brains. Maybe it was right, creative one, full of life one. This knowledge was officially persecuted in Europe, and it was elsewhere taken out from the literature. This diagram, symbol or pattern erased, appears practically all over the world in different historical periods, but there is still present somewhere in simple seed form or in other places in the net or even three-dimensional form, like this is the case with the Chinese food dog that stands in the front of the Red Palace in Forbidden City in Beijing. Is this a coincidence? Or was this knowledge saved for the elites? Simple men of lower class didn't have access to that city. That is why it is named Forbidden, and you know how you can hide things the most easily is not to hide them at all. But the first and only condition is that crowd doesn't know its true value. Best way is that it is ignorant, like during the time of big religions. What is this seed in the body? Next thing about which I was thinking, and I do not claim that it is correct, that there has to be a substance or that something which would represent a seed. Essence, which is something that is connected with ova in woman and sperm in man, and is something that we inherit from our parents during conception. Essence gives us the meaning why we are as we are, or better said, what makes you different from others. According to the theory of 5 elements, this essence resides in the element of water. Then there is that other essence which we get from air or food, and it's not of such personal nature. I doubt that everything we link and attribute to a certain element in the theory of 5 elements belongs to that single element. Water. I believe, even though I do not have any proof to support my belief that the characteristics of the 6th element are attributed to other elements, to each something. What was nearer to one or the other? As you know, a theory evolved pretty long, a few thousand years. Therefore, don't make final judgments too hastily. Maybe you need, as I do, about 1,000 more to figure that out. Fascia, which encapsulates and wraps human on the inside as an infinite net in an uniform body and connects it into a unified body, might be a tissue or an organ that represents that seat of power or element. Let me remind you that through the tubes which are formed by fascia, a liquid is flowing, which is connected to the lymph, which is a part of spleen lymphatic system. Spleen in the body represents an organ connected with the element earth. Fascia connects and gives meaning to everything. Why am I thinking in that direction? Look, fascia connects and gives meaning to everything in the body. Spleen can bring through the fascia tissues its own liquids or lymph and nutrients. Spleen feeds other elements with its grinding of food, according to traditional Chinese medicine, to all the tissues where blood must not go. This is what I came across by chance while I was reading literature about the essence or Qigong. Just like Qigong is something precious which we should protect and nourish, the same way a seed as element is something that we need to rediscover and that knowledge we need to protect. Today in the science there are new and new discoveries and proofs popping up which speak in the favor of this theory. In the universe we are connected with everything. We are not alone. We are just a part of bigger holographic picture. We are just a reflection of the universe, made by the bigger plan or pattern which repeats itself, always and continually. We cannot deny it or hide it. Humans will get free and become nomads again. We are just eternal travelers in this spaciousness that we call conscious space. When a man will start connecting polarities and stop repeating somebody else's thoughts as the only truth that exists, it will free him from dogmatic and religious. Naturally, he'll start thinking, observing, and connecting all around him. All stars, all galaxies, all swarms of stars, nebulas, planets, all on cosmological or on the quantum level is based on the same pattern. We are connected with space, which is created by the net, which we didn't name yet. Maybe this is an ether or dark matter, maybe it's something else. As I have mentioned before, this web in the body represents fascia. If you would take all cells out of the body and leave only fascia, you would get endless web that forms space and matrix. You would get basic form in which an essence or basis may express itself. And that's life. And what carries life? Seed. In seed is hidden an essence of human life, universe. A human is only a reflection of bigger truth, but even though he is only a reflection, he also carries this truth within. In short, to summarize, hidden element, sixth element, seed, element which characteristics were taken and attributed to others. Life was attributed to wood, for example. If we don't know it, we are trapped in the ignorance and we cannot see the whole picture. We are somehow lost and frightened. Number 5 is one of the most unstable numbers in the nature. Why would that represent the middle, like it is in the theory of 5 elements? Seed is named in the Western esoteric tradition an ether. In India it is called Akash. In some parts of the world, spirit. How did it disappear from the Western thought at the end of the 19th and in the beginning of 20th century? Ether completely disappeared from the dictionary of scientific circles. They introduced a new term vacuum. Vacuum is supposed to be a space or space in between that would fill up a tube, for example, which is closed on the both sides and from which we sucked out all air or gases. Or as another example, a space between the Earth and Moon. And actually the whole universe, which is full of empty space called vacuum or nothingness. But this vacuum isn't nothingness and is actually filled with subatomic particles, and number of those is infinitely many, and they are arranged under a certain pattern. And speak of the devil, this pattern is the one we know from or before the pattern of the flower of life, in the center of which lies the seed of life or seed. The density of this vacuum is much bigger than any substance that we know in its most heavy or dense form. How can then something dense travel through the vacuum? Because it is a vacuum and everything came out of it. It is a seed and the root of everything. It is less than material, and this means it is subatomic or subquantum field. It is the energy in its purest form, or it is better to say undulation that has still all the potential. Sixth element, or ether, is medium for vibrational nature of cosmos. It connects particles on one side of the universe to another on the other side of the universe. One might go even further, connecting one particle in this universe, for example, to another in some other universe. Everything that is found in vacuum is most easily described as fluctuation in space. It is most easily understood when we name it a sound. Sound represented to some ancient cultures a connection with the root or origin or source. If I remind you, in the beginning there was a voice, sound, om, word. That is it. We are again on the simple primordial beginning. Universe, nature, or Tao are simple. You just have to see them that way. May the Chi be with you. Bye.